Hello, and welcome again to LinkedIn Live. Today, I'm talking to you from Denver, Colorado, and as always, we have a very, very exciting guest with us today. I am so very happy that Tom Kolditz joined us today. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Magda. How are you?
Good, great. And, I'm always excited to talk to Tom, but if you look into Tom's bio, it reads more like James Bond. Tom, retired four-star general with great career in the military. He was at West Point. He was at he is still, I think you are still Professor Emeritus at West Point. And then at Yale, and then at the Door Institute for New Leaders. So wherever you go, you just can hear about and read about the fantastic accomplishments of Tom's, who was speaking to seriously thousands and thousands of people in the military and otherwise. He's been recognized by multiple awards, was recognized with different distinctions, including the highest distinction in the military, and also, continues to really, I think, explore what's possible in the arena of leadership. And Tom also wrote two books, at least two I know of. And it is really quite exciting to see that Tom, with all his very, very exciting career, is also a leadership development serial entrepreneur. Is that the word maybe that I could describe you, Tom? So, and now, very recently, leaving Door Institute for New Leaders, Tom is a principal of Saxon Castle. So, Tom, welcome to our conversation. And may I ask, why leadership? What's about it?
Well, I view leaders as making things happen across society, whether it's in business, the social sector, government, and society pays a steep price for bad leadership. And we've seen a lot of it. And so I committed myself, after being in the military for 30 years, to try to improve that. And I really made it a serious part of my personal aspirations and goals to have positive impacts through the development of leaders. And that's what eventually led me to be interested in coaching.
Yeah. I recall at the fairly early in a pandemic, you actually were very generously offering some webinars about leadership in time of crisis, and it was just fascinating. And nowadays, I think we're just moving from crisis to crisis rather than having a days or moments to catch our breath. So in our days right now, do you see a different needs or a need for different leaders? Did it change in during your interest in this subject?
Yeah, so there's an increase in need for leaders who are selfless, who are focused on the organization, the people in it, the products they produce, and are less focused on themselves. And that's something that's difficult for many leaders. They feel like being a leader is some sort of aggrandizement towards themselves. And in crisis, in situations where people are concerned or afraid, they just don't trust leaders who are in it for themselves. And we've seen that play out in many ways, but that's really how leaders need to shift in the contemporary operating environment.
Right. You did mention coaching yourself, but I have to say that you were one of the very early adopters of coaching being a means for supporting leadership development. Because if I remember correctly, already in West Point, you really committed to coaching being part of the program.
Absolutely. I mean, West Point generally did not call it coaching, but every year I would have about 25 officers go through my department of behavioral sciences and leadership. And in conjunction with Columbia University, we would get them a 26 credit hour master's degree in organizational psychology and leadership. And then they would spend the next 3 years coaching cadets through leadership related projects, whether it be running a land navigation course or running the cadet laundry. There's really a lot of sort of small business internal to the Corps of Cadets at West Point. And I can remember thinking, if I could just replicate those people in a civilian environment, I could create a really powerful leader development strategy. And the answer to that was coaches.
Yeah.
And I started using coaches for 4 years at the Yale School of Management. Mm-hmm. That was very successful. And then I did it at Rice, ongoing now for 7 years. And the real reason is that it works. When you measure leader development effects, I have never been able to find any other technique or strategy that has as much impact as coaching. Not retreats, not outdoor activities, none of it is as powerful in terms of results as one-on-one coaching.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned Yale and then Rice. With Rice, this is one of my favorite stories to tell, because a little bit like at West Point, I guess, and I love what you said, that coaching is a strategy. I think that this is so important, that coaching is not being considered a nice to have or nice add-on, but a strategy for the organization being successful because of people who run the organization being successful.
Right. Yeah, it's very important. And increasingly organizations, hold leader development professionals accountable for positive results. And I've always trusted the coaches I've used, which incidentally have always been ICF coaches, because they're well trained. I can remember talking to a client in the early stages. I was just meeting him for the first time, and the meeting was called a chemistry session. And I told him, I said, we can talk in this so-called chemistry session, but the success of coaching is about training and professionalism. It's really not about chemistry. We're not going on a blind date here. We're going to use skills to make things better for you and to help you. So I've really enjoyed my association with various forms of coaching. It's been very helpful to me.
Yeah, you of course, I am the most familiar with the race case, because something you said, you've never seen anything as successful and as strategic as coaching, and yet there is still a discussion, right, about how to measure effectiveness of coaching. And I happen to know that at Rice, you created the entire department dedicated to measuring short and long-term impacts of coaching. I think that was very future thinking of you. And what made you do that, other than me asking?
Well, Rice is an R1 research university. And among the faculty and the students, data matters. Having quantitative results matters to them. It's the culture. And so that's why I started focusing on measurement. And we brought in a very accomplished tenured psychologist to lead that effort. And he did so very successfully. And now he's actually created a nationally available course on measurement and wrote a book called Measuring the Mist, Dr. Ryan Brown.
Right.
And so Rice intends to train as many faculty and grad students as they possibly can as they then graduate and move out into higher education, so that there's never any question about whether you can measure coaching effects or leader development effects. You can. And most of the measurements that Rice uses are existing validated psychological instruments. They're not just made up smiley sheets or something like that. They're very serious measurements that we can predict if someone is being coached well or developed well as a leader. We should see X number of psychological measures go in a certain direction. And so we use those validated measurements to confirm that what we're doing is having an effect on those student clients.
Absolutely. What I was fascinated about was that Rice offered, still offers, of course, coach training to the students. And as I understand, it came about by you asking a very good question of the students, who do they look up to? Who would they want a conversation with? And it appeared that their upperclassmates was the answer.
Yeah, it has been a really good training event to train both students and others on how to coach themselves. It's a really important leader skill. Mm-hmm. Sophisticated, yes. The other thing about it that's been really powerful is that particularly during the pandemic, students were starved for interaction with people, in particular people that were going to be helpful to them or that they saw as, worth listening to. And our coaching went up by about 15 or 20% during the pandemic. Oh, wow. And stayed popular the entire time. We were one of the only institutes or departments that had continuous contact with students. Many of them were almost shut down.
Right.
And so our popularity around Rice increased as that result.
Yeah. And you've been stressing that all along, and I want to really thank you for that the professionalism, that's what matters, and also of a coach. So good preparation, good education, good continuous education, and also providing the training for your faculty and students in the same vein. You started while still at Rice. You started I think a remarkably important initiative, although initiative does not seem to be big enough of the world, and it is bringing leadership development as part of a curriculum in higher education institution.
Yeah, one of the things we discovered when we started studying leader development in higher education is that it almost didn't exist. Higher education talked about it, but they didn't do anything about it. So we've teamed with the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching and the American Council on Education, ACE. And we now have a nationwide optional or elective classification by Carnegie in leadership education and development called Leadership for Public Purpose. And it's pretty straightforward. It's a self-examination by the school, and they just have to tell us how they develop leaders and how they know it works. So there's a measurement component and a strategy component, but it's really quite simple. And we have over 200 schools now participating in that. And what we find is when they self-examine, they automatically get better. We don't have to say you need to do X or you need to do Y. They can figure that out. It's the self-examination that makes them improve. And we're very excited about it. We have opened the applications for about 3 months, I believe, and it'll be open for 18 months. And we're hoping to get somewhere near 1,000 schools out of the 5,200 that are in the United States. And we're also going to try to get it open to Canada, Australia, and a few other places as well, as the Carnegie classifications expand into those nations.
That's awesome. And quite frankly, probably when you first started talking about it, it wasn't very popular, huh? That schools are not doing much to develop leaders.
Well, we were brutally honest. We referred to a lot of what we called bottom feeding. where, people that were running these leadership centers had pitiful budgets. Most of what they were doing was not evidence-based and almost never measured. And they were, I think some people were concerned that we were going to disrupt them. And that really was not true. In fact, when schools take on this classification, they touch up the leader development budget. They increase their leader development budgets, and it makes these former insignificant people the most important people in the school, because they know how to portray the leadership development efforts that the school has. So we're trying to help people as much as we can. We don't care about making money. We don't care about being famous. We don't care about anything but making more and better leaders, because higher education graduates 2.2 million students a year. And the vast majority of them have high school level leadership skills because nothing was done. And we're going to fix that.
That's fantastic, and congratulations for the initiative, and congratulations for bringing it to a fruition, because I know it's been several hard years of work of you, your team, and many others involved in a coalition. So seriously, congrats.
Thanks.
And so now you are a principal of your own coaching and consulting company. What do you see with your clients? What is there a theme? Is there a trend that you start seeing with the clients? What do they need your coaching relationship for?
I see younger and younger leaders, being put into leader roles because they did well at other things, but they don't have much experience. And so that makes coaching them really important. And from my perspective, coaching to me really feeds my soul. I mean, before I'll take a client, I look up everything I can about how their business operates, how they have treated people in the past, what their goals and aspirations are in their vision. And I won't take on a client unless it makes me feel deeply satisfied by helping them. And I've worked for some fantastically successful senior business executives, and I've worked for 27-year-olds who have been given a great challenge in their work and are going to do great things. One that I remember very fondly was a new PhD out of Stanford, and she was given 2 years to use data science in a team, pull together a team, use data science to cure lung cancer.
Oh, 2 years.
2 years by her hospital. And she'd never had a team, she'd never done anything like that. And it was such an honor and privilege to help her, and very fulfilling. And at the end of that engagement, I just told myself, I'm going to scrutinize anyone who wants me to coach them and make absolutely certain that I will have that feeling again. Because coaching in the grander scheme should be improving society through the development of leaders in other ways. There are countries where I will not work because of their stance on human rights. I really do think that focusing on betterment is going to be a really great experience for most coaches.
Yeah. As I mentioned at the beginning of a broadcast, that I am in Denver. I'm here for the senior staff retreat, but we do have ICF has a big chapter here in Denver, so we had great opportunity to meet with the leaders, and that sentiment of great joy coming from what they do was just so apparent around the dinner table. For example, a couple of colleagues were talking about working with the Veterans Association here in Denver and offering coaching to veterans. And they said that they hope that their coaching had equal impact on their clients as it had on them. Working with them, learning their stories, and being able to help them navigate the new reality for them after coming back from combat. So quite amazing stories, which is fantastic. So I take it, Tom, that you wanna stay with coaching, right?
Yeah, I think I'll always have time for 2 or 3 clients, at a time, and so I will stick with that. And I am really looking forward to doing some continuing education and keeping up with some of the new thoughts and techniques in coaching. I think there'll be tremendous growth there over the next 10, 15 years. And I'm really grateful that you're at the head of that, making it all happen.
Oh yeah, I wish it was just me, right? But I do have 50,000 coaches that help me to do that.
Is that what it is now in ICF, 50,000?
Actually, I have almost 60.
That's great. That's great.
And also our number of credential coaches is growing exponentially. So very very satisfying from that perspective. And I think that this is also important to know that many coaches involved in pro bono initiatives as well, right? Right now we're talking with Tom about developing a program for leaders in Ukraine in preparation for the moment that the war is over and they're gonna have to help rebuild the country. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, but I think that this is one of these extensions of coaching which should never be forgotten.
Yeah, it's a terrific initiative, and I know that the people that we're working with in Ukraine are very grateful to you for the help and support that you've given them. And it's kind of a high aspiration to think that coaching could be used to accelerate the recovery of a country, but it can. And I think we're going to watch that happen in the next few years.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, and that's an interesting way of showing what you said earlier, that coaching in general is to better the society, right? And as our vision states, coaching being integral part of a thriving society. So that's where we're going with that.
Yeah, that's one thing that coaching has in common with universities. Universities are there usually articulated for the betterment of society. And the more they merge with coaching, I think the better they'll be able to achieve that vision. And it's affordable. Classroom instruction is very expensive to deliver. And coaching, while it does cost, and we do have to pay coaches for that kind of performance, it's less than what students generally are paying for, in-person classroom instruction. So
that's a good comparison. I didn't even think about it. But also, thanks to the generosity of the Door Institute, we know that many universities around the globe are picking up on bringing coaching as a part of the leadership development curriculum for their students. So again, thank you for that. I'm watching time a little bit, Tom, as I have to catch a plane. So anything you would like to share with our viewers today? And thank you so much for being with us.
Well, I'm grateful to coaches in general because of what they do. And so it's exciting to know that there are about 60,000 ICF coaches, but I don't focus on them, that number. I focus on the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of clients whose lives are improved by these coaches. And to me, that's the real number. And we'll probably never know exactly what that number is, but we know it's massive.
Yeah.
And that kind of contribution should make all of us optimistic and feel good about what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Wow, that was probably the best closing I ever heard. This is what's going to make us feel optimistic. We all know that. We know it. So, Tom, thank you so much again for joining us today. Congratulations on all your accomplishments, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Thank you so much, Magda. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. Bye.